Now joined by our most recent Monster Energy NASCAR Cup Series winner with Ryan Newman, who won last week at Phoenix. Ryan, I'm sure it's been an exciting week for you. Just talk a little bit about your week and looking into Auto Club this weekend.
Yeah, I think obviously excited about the victory on Sunday, and then getting a chance to go to the shop on Monday after very little sleep to congratulate all the guys that were a part of it, guys and girls for that matter, and just to see everybody. And you know, it's been I don't want to say a long time coming, because I think that when you say that, you kind of expect it, but it had been a while since I'd been to Victory Lane in an RCR for Richard for 3 years of a drought. So it was something that we were fighting very hard for, and was very rewarding, and that's probably the better way of saying it. So just got to do some things around the farm and hang out with the kids and do some things like that as a normal person, I guess you could say. But outside of that, just being at the shop on Monday was a lot of fun.
All right, we'll go ahead and open for questions for Ryan. If you have one, just raise your hand and say your name and affiliation, and we'll start with Holly.
Ladies first.
That's right. Holly Kane, NASCAR.com. I spoke with Luke a little bit earlier this week, and he was talking about what a great thing this is to go on and have the victory. And it's something, obviously, you haven't had. You've had to fight for points position or do all of that. Could you just talk about what the difference is, maybe the approach, maybe how this might change, how you kind of go forward this season because you have the victory and you've assured yourself that spot versus having to, fight in on a points type of thing?
Yeah, I think the point system and the point structure reminds me of back in the Winston Cup days, where it was you race as hard as you can in every race, and the cumulative effort, whether you win or not, you're still expected to be a winner at some point to be a champion. It usually just works out that way. But that cumulative effort goes into the entire season, not a given race, and then you can change your strategies on different races or be a little more gambling on certain calls than others. So I don't see it changing the way you would have expected it to have changed the last 3 years, is probably the best way to say it. I think it's really all about going out and figuring out how to do it again and again and again, and eventually building up that bye, so to speak, in each round of one race compared to somebody who maybe isn't as victorious as another team. That's, I think, the ultimate goal, to have your best shot at a one-race championship in Homestead.
All right, Wolfgang, go ahead.
Ryan, last week at Phoenix after the race, you seems to be pretty exhausted under these extreme heat conditions. How you personally prepare for this kind of races under this extreme heat?
You talking about in Phoenix or here this weekend?
No,
just anytime.
It
surprised me in Phoenix how hot I got inside the race car. I knew it was going to be hot, and my rental car said 97 degrees on the way to the airport, so it was probably hotter than I expected it to be, both in ambient conditions as well as what it was inside the race car. So really the worst I've ever been burned inside of a car. I got a burn on my pinky toe, which doesn't sound like it's that much. It's just kind of awkward. And my left heel has about a golf ball on the back of it. That hurts quite a bit. And then the right hamstring, or ham, basically, whatever you want to call it, the backside where my seat was, it's got a little family of blisters that live on it now. And it's just been kind of painful, but it's all right. I mean, it's not. I'm not trying to get sympathy. I'm just saying that I was really hot in a race car, and to give you an idea of why I was as exhausted as I was, when your skin blisters up because of you're cooked. I never felt like I was dehydrated. I never cramped up. Never had any problems like that. I just literally felt like I was in an oven and I needed to get out.
All right.
K Presto Cars and Competition. Ryan, what's the difference, if any, between the handling of the cars this season and last season?
I think, it seems like every year we've taken some downforce off, and it gets better and better. And I guess the balance of that, or maybe the adjustment to that, is the teams get better and better. So we get a percentage of that back each and every year, just refining what we do with the race car from an engineering standpoint. So I think we're getting back to where we need to be with a proportion of horsepower and downforce and drag and braking and acceleration for that matter, and getting to a point where the cars are more fun to drive because they're on top of the racetrack a little bit more. I think we'll see that even more so this weekend. This racetrack always seems to provide good 3 and sometimes 4 or 5 wide racing, but I think just seeing cars slide around will be a lot more fun this week than usual.
So is the change in the cars affecting the performance of the tires more?
That's a very good question, because the tires are always a big part of their performance because they're the only thing touching the racetrack. The less downforce you have, the more you have to really kind of adjust your air pressure to compensate for it. So the less downforce you have, the less air you need to hold that race car up because the body's not pushing the wheels down into the racetrack as hard. So it's just a balance and an adjustment. I wouldn't say that it's much different, but you kind of do have to adjust your air pressures, which anytime we go lower kind of makes Goodyear cringe, but we all kind of fight that knife edge of too low and safe enough.
All right, go ahead.
Kathy Brown, pitting outside the box. Congratulations on your win last weekend.
Thank you.
Just a quick question, and I wasn't at the race this weekend, so I wanted to ask you it. Categorically, when you don't come in for tires and you're sitting duck on the restart, and you weren't, do you attribute your past racing experience before you came into, the Cup Series to help get you through on that restart and propel you to that win?
It all depends on the racetrack to declare the sitting duck. At a place like Fontana here, absolutely. I think you would be a sitting duck if you did the proportional laps and the way the tires fall off here. You would never want to stay out here ever. And under no circumstances. You would be 20th by the time you got to the overtime line. But at Phoenix, the tires were a little bit more durable, held on better. It was the first time we had our car in clean air. And secondly, our car was better on longer runs. So it was to our advantage to stay out. Some guys, for instance, the 22, who ended up blowing the tire, but his car was better on short runs. I mean, he was probably one of the best cars on short runs. So it would have been a no-brainer for him to come in and get tires. But it just works in our favor. And sometimes you have that and sometimes you don't.
All right, Reed, go ahead.
Reed Spencer with NASCAR Wire Service. Ryan, what's your perspective on the use of plates at Indy on the Xfinity cars with the prospect that it may lead to plates on the Cup cars?
I think there's a balance there of speed and safety. I don't know what their sim results are or what their testing has been to validate what needs to be done, but I believe it's all based off of safety. And, Indianapolis is unique in the fact that the corners really are kind of 90 degrees. You never really hit at 90 degrees, but you're hitting more so at a sharper angle than you are at a place like Fontana or Michigan or even a mile-and-a-half racetrack. So keeping that in check, I think, is most important. But given the driver's throttle response and acceleration and the ability to pass people is equally important. And we've seen some racing that gets pretty spread out at Indianapolis that I don't know if a restrictor plate would make that the same or worse or even better for that matter. So, but to me, I think the restrictor plate, or at least the term restrictor plate, usually is more about safety and top speeds than it is anything else.
Ryan Rentz-Brown, Race Chaser Online. Going back last week after the win, what did that do to your confidence, especially being so close as so many times as you were to winning a race? What does that do now going forward for the rest of the season and onwards?
Well, I mean, confidence is kind of key in our sport, and I've always said confidence overpowers ability. If you don't have the confidence, then it doesn't matter your ability. And I think that it definitely is big. I guess there's probably a few people that would argue that I don't need any more confidence, but there is a time after 127 races where confidence, at least in getting to victory lane, is very important and makes a big difference on your ability to win a championship. So ultimately, that's our long-term goal, and hopefully it was at the same time the first of a few that will lead to a championship in Homestead.
All right, we'll take our final question from Bob. Go ahead.
Bob Packers, ESPN, had a couple. The first was, how does it feel just to know you're most likely in the playoffs compared to the past few years where you've had to point your way in?
Yeah, that's the biggest relief, I would say. Aside from getting the victory after 127 races, was being locked into a less stressful Richmond. It seems like we always, no matter what, have been on the bubble, either on the good side or the bad side for the last 6 or 7 years and trying to fight our way in Richmond. So not being that guy will be fun, but at the same time, we're still there to win the race, and we've been close several times.
And with NASCAR taking no action after Kyle Busch a couple weeks ago, after Austin Dillon last week, do you feel like, has it opened up things for drivers? Do you know kind of what you can and can't do, or do you never want to put it in NASCAR's hands?
I don't think anybody wants to put making that judgment call in NASCAR's hands, but unfortunately with our sport, you have, frustrations and therefore temptations, and you have to do what's best, and what's best is not always the same in everybody's eyes, because being aggressive and whether it's with your race car or your right hands doesn't always lead to the answer, but it sometimes gets your point across, and sometimes that's what's needed. So I don't know that it gives us an answer of what we can or can't do, but I think at some point we'll eventually find a limit of what you, so to speak, can get away with.
I believe that's all the questions. Ryan, thank you for coming in today, and best of luck this weekend.
Thank you.